Hello, my name is Christian Shannon. I am currently in Dallas, Texas, but applying from New Orleans, Louisiana, filling out the 3 to 5 minute video for the interview day. So, number one talks about a significant challenge that you have faced, and I want to describe briefly my time as a Fulbright scholar. Over in Poland, I was a teacher at the Poznan University of Technology in the engineering faculty. And the challenge I faced was designing curricula for students that were the same age as me, or some of them were older, in a country where I did not know any Polish and they knew very little English. And I had to find ways to engage them while following the rules of Polish education, but also still being entertaining. It was tough at times to maintain the student-teacher relationship because we were the same age, but I tried to use that to my advantage to be able to relate to them and kind of give them a perspective different than their normal teachers. They were so used to teachers just standing at the front and just kind of preaching all the time. So I made my classes as interactive as possible. I wanted to learn Polish as much as they wanted to learn English. We wanted to learn each other's culture. So it was all about relating, finding unique ways such as games, activities, using jokes, movie clips to make the classes as engaging as possible. Because if I was at the time 23, standing up at the front, this random guy from America telling them what they should be doing, they're going to think I'm nuts. But if I'm able to break those barriers down so that we're all on the same level playing field, they're going to have as much respect for me as I'm going to have respect for them. And at the end of the day, they still made the effort to turn in their grades, their assignments, so I could grade them properly. Fulbright honestly was probably one of the best years of my life. It completely shaped my personal ideologies and made me an incredible independent individual. I had the opportunity to go to over 20 different countries and really just experience new ideas and cultures I've only seen on TV. And it made me realize how biased we are towards other cultures based off of the mainstream media that we see portrays things so inaccurately sometimes. But that's kind of diverging off topic here. So I'll move on to number two. Why are you interested in working with students from low income urban communities? And again, this starts with my passion for education, but here I would like to talk about my undergraduate time at the University of Alabama. Alabama, of course, is an extremely low-income state. It's not urban. Tuscaloosa had about 100,000 people, but it's still, the whole entire state was incredibly underprivileged, I would say. So I saw in more rural areas individuals that did not have proper access to education because of institutional problems, and I tried to make an effort as much as I could at that time to volunteer and to give them something that they were otherwise being ignored. So that was in Alabama, and I'd like to continue on up to New York. It's a completely different animal, of course, completely different environment, but it's the same kind of basic, ineptitude by our own, government, our own institutions, where people are being forgotten because they're placed in circumstances that they did not choose to be in. So those of us that do have privilege need to be able to acknowledge it and do our best to alleviate the issues that these people have. And so to measure student success, too often our success is based off of numbers. It's sheerly quantitative, A, B, C, that's it. If you're an A, you're great. B, you're doing all right. C, you're just getting by. And that puts a lot of stress on students. So success should not be based off of a grading system. I want to see students with more confidence, with more ability to engage, more passion about what they're doing, who find their own interests. They don't have to go on and be a doctor or a lawyer. Maybe they discover that they like to write poetry or something, or they love mathematics. So if I help them get excited about something and really join, a cause that they're eager about, that would be a success for me. And then finally, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. Again, taking this back to Alabama, especially with the recent Senate election back in December, this really just spoke to me because I know that in Alabama they were still doing their best to limit African Americans from voting, but especially African American females still hit the polls, and was the reason that Doug Jones was successful in that race, because they continued to improvise and overcome those boundaries that were set in front of them. You know, people were coming up with ridiculous reasons why they should not be allowed to vote, but they still did it, and they ended up being victorious, which was just an incredible moment for the state. Hopefully, you know, continued growth going forward. But what made me pause, you know, this was not something shocking to me. I think that, you know, it's definitely a problem that we have. But, you know, nothing really shocked me. I think it was honestly an oversimplification of the problems that we have. And just didn't delve as much into the problems as I would have liked it to. Obviously, it was just an excerpt, but it's, you know, it's just a clear problem that we know we have, but it's how do we solve it? It just seems like a vicious cycle. We want to improve the education, but the funding is getting cut to education. We need to start from the bottom up. There's too much of a top-down approach where we're trying to play catch-up constantly and educate high school students, but that's just a reoccurring cycle of ineptitude. So we need to start with the youngest students, kindergarten, pre-K, and build up from there, improve those schools. So going further, they have a stronger base and they're more passionate about education. But also, real quick, I know I'm over. You know, the prison system in the U.S. is also extremely overinflated and completely broken. Living in Europe, I saw it's more based off of remedying people and kind of rehabbing them, not putting them in a cell by themselves for the rest of their lives, but making conscious efforts to make them better people so they don't repeat. So, you know, there's a lot of issues with prison, education, reform, politics. So we have to find our own passions and try to chip away as best as possible to make it easier going forward so other people can continue to make change and perpetuate the system. So I'm way over on time, so I got to go, but thank you very much for your time.